What if what if the most dangerous thing that could ever happen to your career or like your life's calling isn't actually failure? What if the absolute worst case scenario is early success?
It is a terrifying thought because, well, it completely upends everything we are taught to desire.
Right.
I mean, we are wired to want the fast track.
Yeah.
We want the rapid promotion, the viral moment, the massive
Oh,
platform.
absolutely. The 30 under 30 lists, the instant fame.
Exactly. But when you look closely at what actually sustains a human being under intense pressure, early success, without the hidden architecture to support it, it's essentially a trap.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to this deep dive. If you were listening to this right now, whether you're, prepping for a huge boardroom presentation or whether you're trying to lead your family through a really chaotic season, or maybe you're heading into a formal mission field, you and I live in a world that equates a highly polished resume, a magnetic personality, and a steep upward trajectory with readiness.
We really do. We look at someone's raw talent and we just say, oh, they're ready to lead.
Yeah, but the material we're diving into today completely deconstructs that modern obsession.
It really does. We are exploring this profound, ancient framework for what it actually takes to be prepared for long-term service and leadership.
And it kind of strips away all those superficial metrics we usually rely on, right? Like the degrees, the charisma, the networking skills.
Right, and it replaces them with a very resilient, tested model. A model that is built on, well, hidden formation, deep character, and this abiding dependence on something far larger than our own competence.
Because usually when we talk about a hiring decision or like picking a leader, there's this expectation of precision. It's like engineering.
Yes, very transactional.
Yeah, you look at the resume, you see the list of accomplishments, the skills, and it acts like an X-ray. You just point and say, yep, the bones are good. They are ready. It's totally binary. Qualified or unqualified.
And we crave that simplicity. I mean, we like things to be visible and easily categorized. But when you step into the realm of deep human service, spiritual leadership, or really any role that requires people to genuinely trust you with their well-being, that X-ray machine just shatters.
It just doesn't work anymore.
No, it doesn't. The landscape of what makes someone actually ready is incredibly complex.
It's the definition of diagnostic muddy waters. And the stakes here are so incredibly high for you listening to this. The central tension we're exploring today is why a growing platform or a massive audience or immense natural talent does absolutely nothing to guarantee that a person is actually ready to carry the weight of leadership.
Think about the core distinction being made in the source text here. There is a razor-sharp dividing line between what a person can do.
Like their technical skill.
Right, their technical skill, their capacity to perform. There's a line between that and what a person can bear.
What they can bear. Meaning their character.
Exactly, their character, their internal resilience. In our fast-paced, highly digitized culture, we constantly confuse visibility with credibility.
Oh man, do we ever.
We see someone with a lot of followers or a high-ranking title, and we automatically assume they have the depth to match the height.
We confuse competence with readiness. We think, well, because they can do the math, they can run the company. Or because they can speak eloquently on a stage, they can guide a community.
Precisely. Technical skill might open the doors for you.
Hmm.
A great pitch or a really charismatic presence will get you into the room.
Sure.
But only character keeps those doors open over a span of decades. What's fascinating here is that the text argues that competence without character is, at its core, spiritual and psychological fragility.
Spiritual fragility. That is such a heavy phrase. Let's really look at that. I mean, it means you might look like a bodybuilder on the outside, you've got all the visible markers of strength, but your bones are essentially made of glass.
That is the exact danger. Public influence without inward depth forces people into a terrible position.
How so?
Well, they have to start performing holiness or performing integrity while actively avoiding actual inner transformation.
So they're just acting.
Yes, they learn the vocabulary of sacrifice.
Yeah.
They know exactly what to say to sound humble.
Right, they know all the buzzwords.
But they lack the substance of it. They might be able to manage a crowd of thousands or cast a massive vision, but they can't manage their own private anger when someone disagrees with them in a meeting.
Wow. Yeah, they can dissect complex problems at work, but they are completely blind to their own temptations and flaws.
It's a terrifying disconnect.
It's like having this gorgeous facade on a building that's completely hollow inside. And this framework gives us these lists of character traits that are supposed to unify the inner and outer life.
Things like integrity, teachability, purity, humility.
Yeah. It's not about looking good when the camera is recording. It's about who you are when everyone else leaves the room. And there is this analogy in the sources that I think paints this dynamic perfectly, the analogy of the two trees.
Oh, yes. I love this one.
You too. Walk us through it.
Okay, so picture two trees growing in an open field. The first tree grows incredibly fast and tall. The environmental conditions are absolutely perfect.
Like it has plenty of sun, rich topsoil.
Exactly. Perfect rain, no competition at all. It is leafy, it is impressive, and people admire it from a distance.
It looks like the picture of success.
But here is the unseen reality. Because the conditions were so easy and the surface soil was so rich, it never had to push its root system deep into the hard earth to search for water.
So its roots are wide, but entirely shallow.
Right. They are basically just resting on top of the dirt.
So what happens?
Well, when a severe, once-in-a-decade windstorm comes howling across that field, the tree bends too far. The shallow roots rip right out of the soil, and it snaps.
Just completely topples over.
Exactly. But the second tree looks completely different. For years, maybe even decades, it grows agonizingly slowly.
So if you were just walking by, you wouldn't even be impressed by it.
Not at all. It might even look a little stunted compared to the first one.
But why is it so slow?
Because it is spending the vast majority of its energy below ground. It is fighting through rocks, pushing deep into the dark, building this massive, invisible, anchoring root system.
It's seeking deep water.
Yes. So when that exact same storm hits the field, the slow-growing tree might lose some leaves, it might get battered, but it survives. Its roots hold it fast.
And this maps so directly onto the two types of leaders we see in the world, doesn't it?
Perfectly.
The first leader advances rapidly. They are articulate, they read the room beautifully, they know exactly how to create momentum and hype.
But under the severe pressure of public criticism, or a massive financial delay, or a moral temptation.
They falter, they just snap.
Right. The second leader, though, advances slowly. Their path is full of hidden labor, routine tasks, and moments of correction.
But over time, their humility becomes durable. They endure because they've been shaped by the slow, quiet school of tested faithfulness. But hold on, let me push back on this for a second.
Please do.
Because I can hear a listener thinking, look, if I'm hiring an architect to build me a house, I just care if they can draw the blueprints. I don't need to know if my architect is deeply humble or if they have a rich inner life. I just need to know the roof isn't going to cave in on my kitchen.
That's a very pragmatic view.
Right. Why does this inner life, this character stuff, matter so much if the competence is there?
I love that pushback, because it really gets to the heart of the matter. If we're talking about purely transactional roles, maybe you can get away with just competence.
Okay.
But in spiritual leadership, in deep mentorship, and really in any profound form of human service, the leader is the building.
Oh, wow. Wait, the leader is the building.
Yes. When people follow a leader, especially in a context of mission or community, they aren't just receiving data from a spreadsheet.
No, they're sheltering under that person's influence.
Exactly. They are opening their lives, their vulnerabilities, their hopes. If the hidden foundation, the character of that leader, is cracked, the people sheltering inside that building are the ones who get crushed when it collapses.
That makes total sense.
A highly gifted person without character doesn't just fail quietly, they cause collateral damage. They start believing that the success of the work is just evidence of their own exceptionalism. They use people as tools rather than serving them.
Yeah, if the architect's character fails, maybe they embezzle money, but you still have a house. But if a leader's character fails, the people trusting them are the ones who lose their home, psychologically and spiritually.
That is beautifully put.
Okay, so if character is this slow-growing, invisible root system that keeps the building from collapsing, how exactly does it grow? I mean, you don't just wake up on a Tuesday with deep roots and profound humility.
Definitely not.
Which brings us to a specific sequential pattern of formation that we really need to dive into.
Yes, when you look across ancient wisdom and biblical narratives, there is a distinct, repeating 5-step pattern to how a person is actually prepared for significant weight.
Okay, what are the steps?
It goes calling, testing, weakness, dependence, and finally commissioning.
Calling, testing, weakness, dependence, commissioning.
Right. And the most shocking part of this pattern is that almost no one is called to a great task without first being plunged into a prolonged period of hiddenness.
Hiddenness, just the word makes my skin crawl a little bit.
It's not a popular concept.
No. It sounds like being shelved, like you're sitting on the bench while everyone else is out there playing the game, building their brand, living their purpose.
Especially today.
Right. If you aren't visible, if you don't have a presence, you basically don't exist. Imagine telling an emerging leader today to leave their LinkedIn profile completely blank for a decade.
They would have an absolute panic attack.
It would.
They absolutely would. The anxiety of irrelevance is one of the defining psychological realities of our time.
Yes, the FOMO is real.
But this framework is adamant that hiddenness is not a delay tactic.
It's not.
No, it is not God forgetting about you. It is a highly intentional workshop of grace.
A workshop of grace. I like that.
Think about what visibility does to an unformed ego. If you hand someone massive influence before their character is ready, the applause will literally distort their reality.
They start believing their own hype.
Exactly. The hidden years are the only place where a person can learn to obey without an audience, where they can learn to serve when there is absolutely no spotlight, no reward, and no recognition.
It is where raw ambition goes to be purified.
It's the ultimate ego-stripping process.
I mean, the ultimate example given in the text here is Jesus himself.
Yes.
He lived 30 years in complete, absolute obscurity in a blue-collar town before his public ministry ever began.
30 years of silence.
3 decades.
Ugh.
Of working with wood, of being a normal neighbor. If the purest example of leadership in human history embraced 30 years of hiddenness before 3 years of public work, it completely silences our modern, frantic fascination with instant significance.
It really puts our impatience into perspective, doesn't it?
It totally does. And the case studies on this are wild when you actually stop and think about the reality of their daily lives. Take Moses.
A prime example.
We think of Moses as the guy with the staff, parting the Red Sea, confronting the most powerful man on earth. But before any of that, he spends 40 years in the wilderness of Midian.
40 years.
Think about the psychological whiplash. He goes from being a prince in the courts of Egypt, surrounded by wealth, power, constant stimulation, to staring at sheep in the desert. For 40 years. The sheer boredom of that is staggering.
It is, but that boredom, that stripping away of his royal identity, was the point.
Really?
Yes. Moses had to learn that a leader isn't just someone who drops the mic in front of Pharaoh and walks away.
Right.
A true leader is someone who can endure the relentless, petty complaining of the people they are trying to save without losing their own soul.
Wow.
If he hadn't learned patience with stubborn sheep in the silence of the desert, he would have destroyed the Israelites when they rebelled against him later.
That is so true. He would have just snapped. And then there's David.
Another incredible story of hiddenness.
He gets anointed as the future king, oil poured on his head, a literal divine calling. And what happens next?
Now you'd expect? Yeah.
No, he doesn't go to a corner office. He doesn't get a crown. He goes right back out to the pasture to smell like sheep again.
Right back to the mundane.
And later, he's literally hiding in caves for years, running for his life from a paranoid king.
Right. David had to learn trust in absolute isolation. He was facing lions and bears in private, defending the flock when no one was watching, long before he was ever trusted to face Goliath in public.
It was all preparation.
Yes. His courage before the giant wasn't a sudden burst of adrenaline. It was rooted in a deep, private history of trusting God in the dark.
And Joseph, talk about the furnace of hiddenness.
His story is so intense.
He has these grand dreams of leadership as a teenager, and his reward for those dreams. He is betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery in Potiphar's house, and then falsely accused and thrown into a dungeon.
It just goes from bad to worse.
He is utterly forgotten by the people he helps.
Joseph's story is the masterclass in enduring delay. He wasn't just being trained as an administrator in Egypt. He was being meticulously formed in the furnace of injustice.
The furnace of injustice.
Think about the power he eventually wielded. He became second only to Pharaoh. If he had been handed that power as an arrogant teenager, he would have been a tyrant.
Oh, 100%.
He had to be broken down by slavery and prison to become someone who could hold immense, almost absolute power without becoming corrupted by it. He learned empathy through his own trauma.
So if you are listening to this right now and you are feeling completely overlooked,
Yeah.
maybe you are at a job where your talents are ignored, or you are in a season of parenting where you feel invisible, or your creative projects are getting zero traction.
This framework says you aren't being shelved.
Exactly. You aren't falling behind. You are being formed. You are building the root system.
That is a profound reframing of our daily frustrations.
It really is. But that brings up a really tough reality.
What's that?
Well, during these hidden years, people don't just sit there peacefully meditating like monks. They often hit a massive wall of their own limitations. Right. They encounter their own deepest flaws, physical ailments, or psychological barriers. Does hitting that wall, like discovering how deeply flawed or limited you are, mean you're disqualified from the calling?
That tension is exactly what this framework addresses next. Because encountering our limits isn't the end of the journey, it's the actual gateway to readiness.
Wait, encountering our limits is the gateway.
Yes. To understand this, we have to look at a core concept that completely redefines how we view our limitations. There's this famous passage, 2 Corinthians 12:7-10, where the Apostle Paul talks about his thorn in the flesh.
Yeah, this is a fascinating moment. Paul is arguably the most effective leader in the early church. And he has this thorn, which, scholars debate maybe it was a physical illness, maybe a spiritual attack, maybe a chronic weakness.
Right, we don't know exactly what it was.
But it's agonizing, and Paul begs, he pleads 3 separate times for this limitation to be removed.
And the response he gets is basically a flat no.
The response is, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So what does this all mean?
This concept is described in the text as a theological earthquake.
An earthquake.
Because think about what the modern professional world tells us. Our culture tells us that maturity means becoming completely self-sufficient.
Yeah.
It means identifying your weaknesses and either life-hacking them out of existence, compensating for them, or hiding them behind a massive wall of invulnerability.
You never show the boardroom your frailty.
Exactly.
Never let them see you sweat.
Right. But this framework argues the exact opposite. It argues that true maturity is the sanctification of dependence.
Wait, sanctification of dependence. Let's translate that for a second. You're saying maturity isn't about getting so strong, so optimized that you don't need help anymore.
No, not at all.
It's about taking the very thing we are most ashamed of, our neediness, our limits, and making it a holy thing. Making it the very place where we connect with God.
That is exactly it. You don't outgrow your need for grace. You grow deeper into it.
That is beautiful.
Why was the thorn left in Paul's life? The text is explicit. It was to keep him from becoming conceited because of his extraordinary success and revelations.
So it was a safeguard.
Yes, weakness in this context is incredibly purposeful. It is an appointed mercy.
An appointed mercy.
Wow. It protects the servant from the poison of pride. It kept Paul intimately aware every single day that the incredible work happening through him was not sustained by his own brilliance, but by a power outside himself.
Hold on. I can hear the alarm bells ringing.
Okay, let's hear them.
Isn't there a huge danger here? Can't someone easily weaponize this idea of weakness? Can't they use it as a highly spiritualized, convenient excuse for just bad behavior or toxic leadership? Like, hey guys, I know I scream at my staff and I'm a narcissist, but I'm just weak. God's power is made perfect in my terrible temper. You just need to give me grace.
That is a vital distinction, and it is crucial we don't blur the lines here. There is a strict, hard boundary between surrendered weakness and dysfunction.
Okay, break that down for us.
The framework puts it perfectly. A humble, surrendered weakness says, Lord, I need you. I cannot do this apart from your strength. Help me change.
And the dysfunction?
A dysfunctional excuse says, this is just how I am. I'm wired this way, so I need not change, and you all just have to deal with it.
Wow. One seeks transformation, the other demands accommodation.
Exactly. Grace does not replace responsibility. It empowers it.
So you still have to do the work.
A thorn in the flesh might drive you to your knees in prayer, but character still requires the daily discipline of obedience. Weakness is an acknowledgement of our limit, not a license for our sin.
Okay, so if weakness is the stage for grace, and we can't just use it as a get-out-of-jail-free card to be passive, how does human effort actually fit into this equation?
It's a delicate balance.
Because if God's power is perfect in my weakness, do I just sit back on the couch, eat potato chips, and let God do all the heavy lifting? Or am I supposed to be sweating?
This brings us to a beautiful, holy tension. How do we balance human effort with divine grace? There is another anchor thought here from the ancient texts, specifically Philippians 2:1-13.
Okay, what does it say?
It says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to act according to his good purpose.
Work out your own salvation. I feel like the modern achiever reads that and immediately thinks, okay, great, give me the checklist. I have to earn this. I have to hustle my way to spiritual maturity. I have to perform.
And that is the trap. The instruction is incredibly clear that Work out does not mean work for.
Workout does not mean work for.
Right, you cannot earn your transformation. This concept rejects the two massive errors that constantly derail human beings.
What's the first error?
The first error is pride. That's the belief that says, I did this myself. Look at my discipline. Look at my habits. I manufactured my own maturity.
The self-made guru trap.
Yes. And the second error is passivity. That's the belief that says, well, God is sovereign. He will do everything. If I'm supposed to be patient, God will just magically zap me with patience while I sleep, so I don't have to do anything.
It's holding together two things our brains desperately want to separate. We want it to be 100% us or 100% God.
But the reality is a partnership. The beauty of this framework is that God works in the believer to shape their very desires.
Shape their desires.
The text says he works in us to will. He literally awakens holy desire where apathy or selfishness used to rule. He changes what you want.
Okay.
And then that new inner desire fuels your human effort to act. Your obedience, your discipline, your sweating, it is all an expression of a grace that was already given to you.
It makes me think of an analogy. Have you ever ridden one of those electric e-bikes up a really steep mountain trail?
I can't say I'm much of a mountain biker, but I know the concept.
Okay, so with an e-bike, you don't just twist the throttle and sit there like a motorcycle. You still have to pedal.
Right, you still have to put in effort.
Yeah, you are sweating. Your legs are burning. You are actively gripping the handlebars and choosing the steering to stay on the narrow path. You are putting in immense effort.
Okay.
But built into the bike is this invisible electric motor. And as long as you are pedaling, that motor kicks in and multiplies your effort exponentially. You could never get up that mountain on your own leg power, but the motor will completely shut off if you stop pedaling. The pedaling is your human obedience. The motor is the divine grace working in you.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it.
It really helps me wrap my head around it.
And what does that pedaling look like on a random Tuesday? It's highly practical.
Give me an example.
It looks like resisting a sudden temptation, not by sheer white-knuckled willpower, but by pausing and asking for help in the moment.
Yeah.
It looks like processing your grief and lament honestly. Instead of numbing your sadness with alcohol or endless scrolling, you bring your raw sorrow to God. It looks like accepting a harsh piece of correction from a colleague without immediately building a defensive wall. And it looks like maintaining those quiet daily rhythms, silence, prayer, rest, that keep your connection to the motor alive.
But here's the hard truth about pedaling up a mountain. It takes a long, long time.
It really does.
And eventually, the initial enthusiasm wears off. It always does. The honeymoon phase ends. The shiny novelty of the new job, the new marriage, or the new calling completely fades. What happens then?
That brings us to the crucible of endurance.
Endurance.
If character is the invisible architecture of your life, endurance is the load-bearing beam.
The load-bearing beam.
Yes. It is what holds the entire structure up when the immense weight of reality actually drops on it. And endurance is critically misunderstood.
How so?
It is not just surviving hardship. It is remaining obedient, remaining soft-hearted in the middle of the hardship.
Remaining obedient and soft while you are getting crushed. That is infinitely harder than just gritting your teeth, putting your head down, and surviving until Friday.
It is the ultimate test. Passion is what starts a journey. Anyone can be passionate on day one, but only perseverance finishes it.
Wow, yeah.
Think about how easy it is to be fervent, to be committed when the company is hitting record profits or the community is growing and everyone is praising your leadership.
Everybody loves you when things are going great.
Right. But what happens when it shrinks? What happens when the doors close, when the funding dries up, when the promised fruit is delayed by years and the applause completely vanishes? Do you still serve?
That's the real question.
Endurance is the definitive evidence that the root system we talked about earlier has actually taken hold.
The historical examples of this are so clarifying. Look at Daniel.
Yes.
He is a young man forcibly taken from his homeland and dropped into Babylon. This is a completely foreign, highly hostile, overwhelmingly powerful empire that wants to erase his identity.
It's an impossible situation.
But he shows massive endurance because he resolved his heart before the pressure peaked. He didn't wait until the king demanded he compromise to decide who he was going to be. He had pre-decided his character.
And contrast Daniel with Ruth. Her environment was totally different.
Right, completely different setting.
Her character wasn't tested in the halls of immense geopolitical power. It was tested in extreme, terrifying vulnerability.
She was a widowed foreigner.
Yes, living in a patriarchal society. She had no status, no wealth, no legal leverage whatsoever. Yet she demonstrated this quiet, loyal, fiercely steadfast dignity.
She chose to glean in the fields, doing back-breaking manual labor to care for her mother-in-law.
Endurance looks completely different depending on the furnace you are in, but the pure metal it produces is exactly the same.
But here is a very real danger. How do
Mhm.
you endure a long furnace without just becoming a bitter, cynical, hardened person?
That is the risk, isn't it?
Yeah. We have all seen leaders or parents or colleagues who have survived a long time in the trenches, but they are cold, they're defensive, they are harsh to be around, they endured, but they lost their joy.
This is a crucial distinction. Endurance is not grim resilience. It is not stoicism. As the framework defines it, true endurance is loving obedience over time.
Loving obedience over time.
If you suffer without character, if you just try to tough it out on your own strength, the pain will calcify your heart.
It makes you bitter.
It will make you bitter and resentful. You will feel entitled because of how much you've bled.
Oh, that martyr complex.
Yes. But if you suffer with character yielding that pain, trusting the process, staying connected to grace, the suffering actually breaks open your ego. It makes you deeply tender, deeply compassionate, and profoundly wise.
Suffering with character makes you tender. That is so deeply counterintuitive, but when you meet someone like that, an older person who has been through hell but is still soft and kind, it is magnetic.
It is the most beautiful thing to witness.
Now, you mentioned Daniel being dropped into a foreign culture, Babylon. We really need to spend some time here because endurance is uniquely, aggressively tested when a person is taken out of their comfort zone and dropped into an unfamiliar environment where all their normal safety nets are gone.
This is one of the most vital areas to explore: ethical integrity in cross-cultural contexts.
Whether you are literally moving across the globe for mission work or you are stepping into a vastly different corporate culture, you face the same psychological trap.
When we enter a new culture, we know we have to adapt. We have to learn the customs, the language, the social norms.
Right.
But there is a fierce warning here against letting a desire to fit in or a respect for the culture mutate into moral compromise.
It's the slippery slope of contextualization. You start by adapting your communication style, and before you know it, you are adapting your ethics.
Exactly. And there is a brilliant clarifying anchor thought for this. Holiness is not Western, Eastern, African, Asian, or Latin. Holiness is the radiant life of God made visible in human beings.
True character doesn't change its core definition based on your GPS coordinates.
That is so powerful. Because the danger isn't that you wake up one day and decide to become an evil villain. The danger is ethical drift.
Ethical drift.
And ethical drift never arrives wearing a name tag that says, "Hi, I'm evil." It arrives dressed in a very reasonable suit called pragmatism.
Yes.
It says, look, I know this feels a little shady, but that's just how things work here. If you want to get things done, if you want to help people, you have to play the game.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The psychology of ethical drift is insidious. We justify it because our goals are noble.
To combat this, the framework outlines 5 highly specific pressure points where this drift almost always happens when you are in a new context.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is money.
Oh, money is always the first one. Let's really look at this. How does ethical drift happen with money?
It starts small. It's the blurring of lines between personal funds and organizational funds because it's all going to the same cause anyway.
Yep.
It's hiding payments. Or, very commonly in international contexts, it's paying small bribes and justifying it as a customary local fee.
The rationalization is, if I don't pay this official, the aid won't get through. I have to sin a little to do a lot of good.
Which completely erodes the foundation of trust.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Okay, what is the second pressure point?
power. When you enter a new culture, especially if you come from a wealthier or more resourced background, there's an immediate power imbalance.
Sure.
Ethical drift happens when you start using your funding, your influence, or your connections to control the local people. You demand compliance. You subtly threaten to pull the resources if they don't do things exactly your way. You stop being a servant and become an imperialist.
That is heavy. And the third point.
Sex. This is a profound vulnerability.
Why in a cross-cultural context specifically?
Think about the reality of entering a new culture. You are isolated. You are emotionally fatigued from constantly translating language and customs. You are deeply lonely. That fatigue creates massive vulnerability. And often, individuals will use the ambiguity of a new culture, oh, they just have different boundaries here, to excuse exploitative behavior or affairs. The isolation becomes a breeding ground for secrecy.
It's the what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas mentality, but applied to long-term service.
hmm
Terrifying. What is number 4?
Favoritism. This is subtle but highly destructive.
How does that play out?
When you are overwhelmed in a new place, you naturally gravitate toward the locals who speak your language, who agree with your ideas, or who simply make your life easier.
Right, it's
I
comfortable.
start giving them preferential treatment, better resources, more access. Without meaning to, you fracture the local community, creating insiders and outsiders based purely on who caters to your comfort.
You essentially build a little echo chamber to protect yourself. And the final pressure point.
Manipulation. This is strategic dishonesty.
Like what?
It is hiding the true costs, inflating the success metrics in your reports back home, or guilt-tripping people into supporting you.
Oh.
And again, the justification is always, but we have such noble goals. The end justifies these slightly dishonest means.
I want you listening to this to really internalize this. Even if you aren't packing your bags for a foreign mission field tomorrow, think about how this applies to modern corporate life.
The dynamic is identical.
Right. You get a new job at a high-intensity, hyper-growth tech startup or maybe a massive cutthroat law firm. Suddenly, you are immersed in a new culture, and you start feeling the pressure of these exact same 5 points.
They absolutely do.
You start making small concessions just to fit in. You inflate a sales metric on a report, because that's just how the industry works. Everyone exaggerates.
Or you engage in favoritism, only mentoring the people who boost your personal brand.
Yes. You talk behind a colleague's back or manipulate a timeline, because in this new environment, you're told having a bias for action means breaking a few rules.
The human heart is a master at rationalizing compromise through the lens of cultural adaptation.
So how do we survive this?
The solution offered here is proactive, not reactive. You must establish clear, non-negotiable guardrails before you ever enter the field.
Before the pressure hits.
You cannot wait for the adrenaline of a crisis to decide what your ethics are going to be. Your willpower will fail you.
It always does.
You have to set up transparent financial audits, completely clear conflict of interest policies, and strict safeguarding rules ahead of time.
It's pre-deciding your character, just like Daniel in Babylon.
Exactly. These aren't bureaucratic burdens meant to slow you down. They are what the framework calls moral furniture. They hold the weight of your life when you are too tired to hold it yourself.
I love the idea of setting up my own moral guardrails. But realistically, if I'm the one making the rules, I am also the one who knows exactly how to secretly break them.
That is the flaw in self-policing.
Right. If I'm alone in a stressful moment, I can justify absolutely anything to my own conscience. You can't just police yourself in a vacuum, right?
And that leads us to the ultimate safety net, the absolute necessity of mentorship, accountability, and the rigorous discipline of being deeply known by others.
Being deeply known.
The modern world loves the myth of the lone wolf. We celebrate the solitary genius, the maverick who doesn't need anyone.
We want to be lone wolves so badly because it's safe. No one can see our flaws.
It flatters our independence and it protects our ego. But the claim made here is definitive. A person untested in community is a person completely unprepared for mission. No one becomes mature in a vacuum.
What does true mentorship look like then?
Mentorship is not just having coffee once a month to get career advice. True mentorship is the transmission of a lived pattern.
A lived pattern.
A good mentor is someone who has walked the path and can spot the warning signs of your pride or your burnout miles before you ever see them yourself.
Because we are essentially blind to our own worst traits.
We are experts at self-deception.
Yes, we are.
We are incredibly skilled at renaming our flaws to sound like virtues.
Oh, give me an example of that.
We rename our chronic impatience and rudeness as urgent, visionary leadership.
Ouch.
We rename our unchecked, selfish ambition as a deep, holy calling. We rename our anxiety as attention to detail. Accountability is the only protection against this self-deception.
We rename our flaws. That hits so close to home. And the reality is when someone actually sees through our renaming, when they call us out on our actual flaw, it stings.
It does.
Our immediate reaction is defensive anger. But there is a brilliant distinction made here about the nature of being called out, the difference between correction and condemnation.
This is a lifesaver for anyone struggling with feedback.
Break it down for us.
Correction and condemnation might look similar from the outside, but their DNA is entirely different. Correction says, your behavior here was wrong and it needs to change.
Okay.
But the intended correction is to seek restoration. It preserves the dignity of the person. It believes you can be better.
It's surgery to save the patient.
Exactly. Condemnation, on the other hand, says, you did this wrong, therefore you are the problem. you are inherently broken.
So it attacks the identity.
Condemnation seeks the collapse of the person. It wants to shame and destroy. When you have a trusted mentor or community correcting you, it is a profound act of grace. It feels like surgery, yes, but it prevents you from destroying yourself from the inside out.
The framework actually gives a very practical, almost architectural rule for how to build this community around yourself.
Yes, the 3 specific types of relationships.
It says you need 3 specific types to survive. First, you need a mentor. Someone ahead of you, older or more experienced for formation and wisdom. Second, you need a peer.
Right, someone on the exact same level.
Someone fighting the same daily battles who can offer raw honesty without any power dynamic. And third, you need an overseer.
The overseer is crucial.
Explain the overseer.
That is someone who actually holds institutional or structural authority over you. Someone who can say no to you, who assesses your readiness, and to whom you must submit.
Why do so many emerging leaders absolutely despise this idea? Why do we fight tooth and nail against having an overseer who can tell us no?
It is the primal fear of exposure. The text diagnoses this perfectly. We want influence long before we want intimacy.
Wow.
We want the visibility of a platform long before we want the vulnerability of being truly known. We want to be admired from afar because up close, people will see our cracks.
But choosing to be deeply known is the ultimate grace, because it allows you to repent, to course correct, and to heal your blind spots in private before those blind spots cause massive, very public damage to yourself and the people trusting you.
It is the ultimate protection.
Okay, so let's zoom out and look at the whole picture.
Okay.
Let's say a listener commits to this entire grueling process. They reject the illusion of instant readiness. They embrace the hidden years of obscurity.
They accept their weakness as a stage for grace.
They sweat and pedal the e-bike of obedience. They endure the furnace without getting bitter. They set up strict ethical guardrails, and they submit to the painful surgery of being deeply known and corrected.
That is a massive journey.
After all of that, how do you finally know? How do you know you were confirmed? How do you know you were actually ready?
This raises an important question, and it's the culmination of this entire journey. And the answer is usually very disappointing to our modern sensibilities.
Of course it is.
True confirmation is almost never an immediate, roaring round of applause. It is rarely a sudden, dramatic lightning bolt, a massive open door, or a soaring emotional high.
And what is it?
True confirmation is proven over time through the slow, undeniable witness of spiritual fruit.
It's the difference between gathering a crowd and actually building health.
Precisely.
Right.
We have to ask a very uncomfortable question. If a business, a ministry, or an organization grows massive in size, if the budget explodes and the audience doubles, but the people inside it are not growing in actual character, if they aren't becoming more kind, more patient, more just, what is that leader actually producing?
It's just numbers.
Growth in size is not confirmation of character. A tumor grows, but it kills the host.
Wow. Growth in size is not confirmation of character. That is a mic drop moment.
True fruit things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are highly relational metrics.
Right.
They aren't abstract concepts. You only know if you have patience when someone's being incredibly annoying.
So true.
These metrics prove that the worker is actually connected to the source, that they are abiding in the vine, rather than just manufacturing hype.
And true fruit builds reproducible health in others. It builds a system that survives. It doesn't just build a cult of personality centered on a charismatic leader, which then completely collapses the second that leader gets a different job or steps down in a scandal.
Exactly. To measure this, the framework offers what it calls a character audit.
And when I read this, I was struck by how uncomfortably ordinary the questions are.
The profound is always found in the ordinary. The audit doesn't ask how well you can cast a vision on stage. It asks, how is your punctuality?
Let's stop right there. Why punctuality? Why does being 5 minutes late matter to my spiritual character?
Because chronic lateness is a relational statement.
How?
It tells the universe and the person waiting for you, my time is inherently more valuable than your time. It reveals a hidden arrogance and a lack of love that you would probably never admit to out loud.
Ouch. That stings. Okay, what else is on the audit?
It asks, how do you handle your finances? Are you generous, or are you secretly gripped by scarcity and greed? How do you handle your anger?
Right, anger.
When you are suddenly cut off in traffic, or when a subordinate contradicts you in a meeting, what spills out of you? Anger reveals what you believe you are entitled to.
It also asks about the state of your sexual purity. which is basically asking, do you view other human beings as sacred image bearers, or do you view them as objects for your own consumption and gratification?
Exactly. And finally, how do you speak about people when they are not in the room?
Oh, gossip.
Do you protect their dignity, or do you leverage their flaws as gossip to make yourself look better?
These ordinary, seemingly mundane daily realities are the actual unvarnished windows into your soul.
They strip away the PR campaign of your life.
Yes. They show whether your heart is actually being transformed by grace or whether you are merely managing your image.
And time always tells the truth.
Time always tells the truth. To summarize this entire philosophy for you listening, there is a line in our research today that says, the kingdom of God often grows like seed in the ground, not like fireworks in the sky.
That is such a vivid image.
If you feel like your growth, your career, or your character is agonizingly slow right now, take a breath. You are a seed. You are not a firework.
Fireworks are spectacular, sure.
Yeah, they get all the oohs and ahs, but they burn out in 5 seconds. They leave nothing but smoke behind, and you can't build a house under them.
A seed takes decades.
It fights through the dirt in the dark, but it becomes an oak tree that provides shade, shelter, and life for generations.
That is the perfect distillation of this deep dive. A firework requires merely an ignition. A seed requires a lifetime of cultivation. What God intends to confirm, he will take the time to sustain.
Okay, let's take a collective breath and review this incredible, heavy, but beautiful journey we've just been on. We started by completely tearing down the illusion of instant competence, that dangerous, modern idea that a polished resume and high charisma means you are ready to hold the weight of leadership. We realized that skill is what you can do, but character is what you can bear.
We moved into understanding the divine pattern of hiddenness, realizing that the dark, obscure, boring years are a critical workshop for our ego, not a waiting room where we are forgotten.
We totally redefined weakness. We learned from Paul's thorn that our most frustrating limits and frailties aren't things to hide. They are the very stage where grace and true strength actually show up.
We navigated the holy tension of effort and grace, understanding that we have to pedal the bike, we have to work out our salvation, precisely because God is the motor actively working in us.
We walked through the crucible of endurance, learning that suffering without character makes us bitter and hard, but suffering with character makes us deeply tender and compassionate.
We tackled the terrifying, slippery slope of ethical drift when we enter new cultures or new jobs, realizing we have to set up non-negotiable moral guardrails before the pressure hits.
We submitted to the painful but deeply necessary grace of being known, corrected, and held accountable by mentors and overseers. And finally, we arrived at true confirmation. Stepping off the stage, looking at the ordinary metrics of our daily lives, and choosing to be a slow-growing seed rather than a quick-burning firework.
It is a profoundly challenging framework. It demands the surrender of our ego. But for anyone stepping into true responsibility, it is the only foundation that will actually hold.
It really is. So to you, the learner, whether you are prepping for a massive high-stakes boardroom meeting tomorrow morning, whether you are trying to lead your family through a deeply confusing season, or whether you are literally packing your bags to serve in a foreign mission field, please remember this. Your inner character is the invisible architecture that will hold up your life's work.
Your talent, your intellect, and your skill might get you in the door.
But only your character will keep the roof from caving in on the people you love and serve.
The foundation simply must be strong enough to bear the weight of the calling, or the calling will crush you.
Exactly. And as we close, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought to chew on today.
Okay.
I want you to think about the exact place in your life right now where you feel the most delayed, the most profoundly misunderstood, or the most severely limited. Think about the thorn you were begging to have removed.
Well, I'll have one.
We spend so much of our precious energy praying and striving to get out of the wilderness. But based on everything we've unpacked today, I want you to ask yourself, what if that specific frustration, that exact delay, isn't actually an obstacle blocking your calling? What if it is the precise, tailor-made furnace required to make you trustworthy enough to finally carry it? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.